And the first one I want to introduce is Colette Payne from the Women's Justice Institute. Colette.
Thank you, Jimmy. My name is Colette Payne with the Women's Justice Institute. Over a decade ago, I joined the Women's Justice Institute to conduct the most comprehensive gender-informed practice assessment at the women's prison in the nation at Logan Correctional Center. At that moment, I became the first formerly incarcerated woman to ever serve in that role. Having been previously incarcerated 5 times in Illinois, I knew the conditions for women were bad. However, I remember being surprised by the unbelievably inhumane conditions and treatment reported by women and staff across the board in Logan. Logan had been a men's prison for nearly 20 years and had carelessly been converted into a women's prison without the proper training, resources, or policies. And women suffered as a result. They were overlooked as we have been historically. Since then, I made it my mission to fight to end women's mass incarceration and reduce harm to those impacted by it. Excuse me. I later co-chaired the WJI's historic statewide Women's Justice Task Force called Redefining the Narrative that united over 600 women, including hundreds behind prison walls, to achieve those goals. All along, closing Logan has been essential to our mission, and we could not have been more pleased when Governor Pritzker announced its closure last year. To be clear, the Women's Justice Institute does not advocate for building new prisons. But we also do not believe in leaving any of our sisters behind to fight for survival in such poor conditions. We have worked for the past 10 years to successfully lead a statewide campaign to close prisons and cut the women's prison population by 50% and beyond. But we also collaborated with Lieutenant Governor Stratton and authored the Women's Correctional Service Act to protect the rights, health, and safety and well-being of women behind bars. My message today is that until they are all free, we must do both. We must redouble our efforts to continue to ensure our communities are properly resourced to prevent incarceration in the first place. But we must never stop fighting for gender-responsive, trauma-informed, and dignified treatment and conditions among women in prison. That includes how they are treated before, during, and after any transition to or from Logan. I join my colleagues here today because the WJI's 2015 assessment that Logan reviewed, among many things, the shocking and inhumane treatment of women during their transfer to Logan from Dwight and Lincoln. As our historic report documented, women were deeply traumatized because they were not informed of what was happening. They were rounded up like cattle onto buses, left there for hours, unable to even use the bathroom, forced to stand in long lines and heckled by staff and prison leaders who told them they were smelly and dirty. It was even reported by both staff and women to our team that one individual in leadership called them smelly-ass bitches and hoes. When they arrived, they found that the former occupants had defecated in the cells and beds, and staff didn't even stop them or ensure it was clean before the women were forced to occupy those cells. That legacy of harm lasted well beyond the transition, particularly as it related to programming, jobs, and education. Because the conversion was poorly planned, there were few paid jobs for women. They lost sentencing credits, opportunities, programming, education was disrupted without a plan. In addition, the death failed to consider that Logan was much further away from the Chicago metro area and that disproportionately impacted Black and brown children, and families were forced to travel much further to visit. Mothers incarcerated at Logan, something that made it almost impossible for many until we founded the Reunification Ride. On behalf of the Women's Justice Institute and the nearly 1,500 incarcerated women statewide that we support, I am here to say that we support the call for a thoughtful, trauma-informed transition plan for women at Logan whenever it finally closes. We know that the closure may not be for a few years, but that should give state officials plenty of time to read the Women's Justice Institute report and the recommendations of the coalition here today and to plan ahead. That said, I think that we are in a much stronger position as a community and state today than we were 10 years ago when Logan was converted. Many of the leaders have changed, and since then, WJI's Women Correctional Service Act had taken effect, including the elements of Trained Women's Division to ensure women are never overlooked again. In addition, we now obviously have a governor who is acknowledging the challenges it will to work with us, invest, and improve these conditions. The WJI and other orgs have been contacted and encouraged by the Pritzker administration to share our ideas. I have even participated in focus groups with women at Logan alongside the First Lady's office and other officials to discuss this plan. We have every assurance that this time, when Logan finally closes, that they will that they will center the women in the transition process. And I am here to say that WJI will provide whatever support is needed to ensure that this happens, to support the elements of the plan presented by our colleagues here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Colette.